14 Stories, The Dark Secrets of the Vatican. Behind the sacred walls of the Vatican lies a world shrouded in secrecy, scandal, and conspiracy. From popes mysteriously dying to exorcisms gone wrong, from mafia ties to whispered accounts of extraterrestrial knowledge, these are the darkest, most disturbing secrets the Church doesn't want you to know. What really happened to a pope who died after just 33 days? Did the Vatican help Nazi war criminals escape justice? And what secrets are buried deep within the Vatican archives? Step into a world of power, betrayal, and cover-ups as we uncover 14 chilling stories that shake the very foundations of the Holy See. Chapter 1. The Cadaver Synod, Putting a Dead Pope on Trial. It was a moonless night in 897 AD when the Vatican's hallowed grounds became the stage for a nightmare. Pope Stephen VI, his eyes wild with vengeance, had ordered the unthinkable, the exhumation of his predecessor, Pope Formosus. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay as shovels pierced the soil, unearthing the coffin from its sacred rest. The Vatican's corridors, usually echoing with prayer, now whispered with dread. This was no ordinary trial. This was a reckoning with the dead. Formosus had been buried 9 months earlier, but time had not been kind. As the lid creaked open, a collective gasp escaped the lips of Stephen's men. The once revered Pope's body was a grotesque shell, his skin sagging, his flesh mottled with rot, his papal robes now a shroud of decay. Yet Stephen's orders were clear. The corpse was dressed in full papal regalia, the tattered vestments clinging to the bones like a cruel joke. The dead Pope was to stand trial. In a dimly lit chamber, the Cadaver Synod began. Torches flickered, casting long shadows across the stone walls, where the air was thick with the stench of death. Pope Stephen VI sat enthroned, his face a mask of fury, while the corpse of Formosus was propped up in a chair, its head lolling to one side, empty eyes staring into oblivion. A young deacon, trembling, was forced to speak for the dead, answering Stephen's accusations in a voice that barely rose above a whisper. "Formosus, you are charged with betraying the holy office." Stephen's voice thundered through the hall, his words dripping with venom. "You sought power unlawfully, and now, even in death, you will answer for it." The room was silent, save for the faint drip of water echoing from the corners. The clergy, their faces pale, watched in horror as Stephen railed against the lifeless figure. Some whispered of curses, of divine wrath for desecrating a pope's body. The air grew colder, as if the very walls of the Vatican recoiled from the blasphemy unfolding within. Then came the verdict. "Guilty," Stephen declared, his voice a jagged edge. The punishment was swift and savage. The corpse's skeletal fingers, once used to bless the faithful, were hacked off, the sickening crunch of bone reverberating through the chamber. The body was stripped, mutilated, and dragged through the streets of Rome like a common criminal. Finally, it was hurled into the Tiber River, disappearing beneath the dark, churning waters. But the river would not keep its secret for long. Days later, rumors spread that Formosus's body had washed ashore, and with it, a wave of miracles. The people whispered of vengeance from beyond the grave. Stephen's triumph was short-lived. Within months, he was deposed, imprisoned, and strangled in his cell. The Cadaver Synod, a spectacle of grotesque power, had unleashed a curse that would haunt the Vatican for centuries. This was only the beginning. The Vatican's shadows hid darker secrets still, and the trial of a dead pope was but the first crack in a facade of sanctity. The rot had set in, and it would spread deeper than anyone dared imagine. Chapter 2. The Disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. The cobbled streets of Vatican City were bustling on June 22, 1983, when Emanuela Orlandi, a bright-eyed 15-year-old girl, walked out of her family's apartment within the Vatican walls. She was supposed to attend her usual flute lesson at a music school near Piazza Navona. She never came home. What seemed like a tragic but ordinary case of a missing teenager soon spiraled into one of the Vatican's deepest and darkest mysteries, a case entangled with the Mafia, international espionage, secret societies, and even the highest ranks of the Church. Was Emanuela kidnapped as leverage in a Vatican financial scandal? Was she taken to silence a secret she had unknowingly uncovered? Or was she the victim of something far more sinister, an internal Vatican crime hidden for decades? In the days following her disappearance, a series of chilling phone calls reached the Orlandi family in the Vatican. An unknown mail caller claimed that Emanuela was being held hostage and demanded an exchange: her life for the freedom of Mehmet Ali Aka, the Turkish gunman who had attempted to assassinate Pope John Paul II in 1981. At first, this theory seemed absurd. How could a teenage girl be used in a plot linked to an assassination attempt on the Pope? But the calls kept coming. The anonymous voices insisted that high-ranking officials within the Vatican knew the truth. Strangely, the Vatican remained largely silent. Why wouldn't the Holy See, Emanuela's own government, launch a full investigation? Why did they refuse to cooperate with Italian police? The silence fueled a far more disturbing theory: that the Vatican itself was involved. Years later, another theory emerged, one that led directly to Rome's most feared crime syndicate, the Banda della Maliana. The gang's leader, Enrico De Pedis, was posthumously linked to the case when a mysterious tipster claimed that Emanuela was kidnapped as a favor to a Vatican official who owed the Mafia money. The most disturbing detail? De Pedis was secretly buried inside a Vatican church, an honor normally reserved for saints and popes. Was this the Vatican's way of repaying a debt? And if so, what happened to Emanuela? Decades later, in 2019, the Orlandi family received a tip: Emanuela's remains are buried in the Vatican. A search was conducted at the Teutonic Cemetery, an ancient burial site within Vatican City. Inside, investigators found hundreds of human bones, some dating back centuries. But Emanuela's body was not among them. The Vatican closed the investigation once again. No answers, no justice, just more silence. What happened to Emanuela Orlandi? Theories range from Vatican corruption to international espionage. But one thing is certain: the Vatican knows more than it's telling. And after 4 decades, the walls of the Holy See still guard one of the most chilling secrets of our time. Chapter 3: The Vatican Bank Scandal, Murder and Mafia Ties. The body swayed gently in the midnight breeze, suspended beneath London's Blackfriars Bridge. His pockets were stuffed with bricks, a cruel mockery of an execution. Roberto Calvi, one of the most powerful bankers in Europe, was dead. But this was no ordinary suicide. It was a message. Dubbed God's banker for his close ties to the Vatican Bank, Calvi had been at the center of a vast financial conspiracy involving missing millions, secret accounts, and the sinister grip of the Mafia. His death was the final chapter in a web of corruption that led straight to the Holy See. At the heart of the scandal was the Istituto per le Opere di Religione, IOR, better known as the Vatican Bank. Officially, it was meant to fund charitable works, but behind the scenes it became a financial juggernaut shrouded in secrecy. Under the leadership of American Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, the Vatican Bank operated with virtually no oversight, making it the perfect tool for laundering dirty money. Calvi, the chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, Italy's largest private bank, had built a powerful empire with Vatican backing. But by the early 1980s, his empire was crumbling. Investigators discovered that $1.3 billion was missing, funneled through shell companies linked to the Vatican Bank. The money had vanished into a labyrinth of offshore accounts, and Calvi, now under immense pressure, became desperate. Calvi's downfall was not just about missing money, it was about who he had stolen from. His illicit dealings had drawn in powerful and dangerous forces: the Italian Mafia, who used Banco Ambrosiano to launder their dirty profits; the secretive Masonic Lodge, P2, a shadowy organization linked to politicians, spies, and military figures; the Vatican itself, which had deep financial entanglements with Calvi's empire. With arrest imminent, Calvi fled Italy. Days later, his lifeless body was found hanging beneath Blackfriars Bridge, symbolically significant as Blackfriars were associated with the Masonic Lodge P2. The coroner initially ruled his death a suicide, but the evidence told a different story. His neck injuries suggested he had been strangled first. His pockets, filled with bricks, hinted at an execution-style murder meant to send a chilling message. Silence is golden. In the aftermath, questions swirled about the Vatican's involvement. The Holy See denied responsibility, yet documents revealed deep financial ties between Banco Ambrosiano and the Vatican Bank. Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, the Vatican's top banker, avoided prosecution by claiming diplomatic immunity. He quietly retired, never facing justice. Decades later, the truth remains buried beneath layers of deception, vanished money, and bodies left in its wake. Roberto Calvi's death was not just a murder, it was a warning. In the dark corridors of power, some secrets are worth killing for. Chapter 4. The Vatican and the Nazi Ratlines. In the dying days of World War II, as the Third Reich crumbled, a silent exodus began. High-ranking Nazi officials, men with blood on their hands, vanished from the ruins of Germany, slipping away before the Allies could bring them to justice. Their destination? South America. Their escape routes? The infamous Ratlines, a vast network of clandestine smuggling operations that funneled war criminals to safety. And at the heart of this operation, according to declassified intelligence files and historians, was the Vatican. By 1945, Allied forces were rounding up Nazi officers, but many of Hitler's most devoted followers refused to face justice. With false identities and forged passports, they disappeared into the shadows. Some, like Adolf Eichmann, the mastermind of the Holocaust, escaped to Argentina. Others, including Josef Mengele, the infamous Angel of Death, found refuge in Paraguay and Brazil. But how did these men, hunted by the world, evade capture? The answer led to Rome, where powerful figures within the church allegedly saw them not as war criminals, but as souls in need of protection. In the chaos after the war, thousands of displaced people flooded Europe. Among them were fugitive Nazis, blending in among the refugees. Some found their way to religious institutions, where sympathetic clerics provided them with new identities and travel documents. The most infamous enabler was Bishop Alois Hudal, an Austrian cleric in Rome and a known Nazi sympathizer. From his position in the Vatican, Hudal helped orchestrate escape routes for war criminals, providing them with false Red Cross passports and safe passage to Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. He believed in giving former Nazis a new life, considering them victims of post-war persecution rather than perpetrators of genocide. Money was another crucial factor. Nazi gold stolen from Jewish victims, looted from occupied countries, was allegedly funneled through the Vatican Bank. Declassified documents suggest that high-ranking Vatican officials may have helped launder these funds, financing the Ratlines that smuggled war criminals across the Atlantic. One such operation led to Klaus Barbie, the Butcher of Lyon, escaping to Bolivia, where he later worked for right-wing military regimes. Eichmann, too, used Vatican connections to board a ship to Argentina, where he lived under a false name until Israeli Mossad agents captured him in 1960. For years, the Vatican denied involvement, claiming ignorance. Yet as more classified documents surface, the truth becomes harder to ignore. Did the Holy See actively aid Nazi fugitives, or did individual rogue clergy members act alone? What remains undeniable is this: the Vatican was a gateway to freedom for men who should have faced the gallows. The Ratlines were real, and through them, some of history's worst criminals escaped justice, under the silent watch of the Church. Chapter 5. The Murder of the Vatican's Swiss Guard Commander. The Vatican is a city of secrets, but on the night of May 4th, 1998, one secret became impossible to contain. Deep within the fortified walls of the Holy See, inside a Vatican apartment, 3 bodies lay sprawled in a pool of blood. The victims, Alois Estermann, the newly appointed commander of the Swiss Guard, his wife Gladys Mazza-Romero, and Cedric Tournay, a young Swiss Guard corporal. The official story was swift and decisive. Tournay, furious over being passed up for a promotion, snapped, executed Estermann and his wife in cold blood, then turned the gun on himself. A textbook murder-suicide, tied up neatly with a bow. But almost immediately cracks appeared in the Vatican's narrative. This was no random act of rage. This was a crime drenched in intrigue, betrayal, and the darkest corners of Vatican power struggles. Cedric Tournay, a 23-year-old Swiss guard, had no history of violence. What he did have, however, was a deep resentment toward Esterman, who had allegedly denied him a long-overdue Medal of Service. But could this grievance alone drive a trained soldier to cold-blooded murder? Tournay's mother didn't think so. She received a mysterious letter from her son just hours before his death. In it, he spoke of his frustrations, but also expressed a desire to leave the Vatican and start anew. He gave no hint of the rage-filled explosion that the Vatican claimed had led to the killings. More disturbing was the autopsy report, which Vatican officials rushed to bury. Tournay had been shot in the back of the head, an unusual method for a supposed suicide. Forensic experts raised concerns. Could Tournay have been murdered to silence him? Alois Esterman was a man at the center of Vatican politics. He had just been promoted to commander of the Swiss Guard, a position that put him in close proximity to the Pope. His rise had not been smooth. He had powerful enemies within the Vatican's shadowy corridors, particularly in Opus Dei, the ultra-conservative Catholic organization rumored to pull strings behind the scenes. Then there were the whispers of a double life. Rumors swirled that Esterman had secret ties to foreign intelligence agencies and was suspected of leaking sensitive Vatican information. Some sources even suggested he had intimate relationships that could have jeopardized his standing, an unforgivable sin in the Vatican's rigid hierarchy. Was Esterman about to reveal something dangerous? And was Tournay merely a convenient fall guy in a cover-up that went far beyond a disgruntled guard's revenge? Within hours, the Vatican declared the case solved. There was no external investigation, no deeper probe into possible conspiracies. The files were sealed, the crime scene was sanitized, and the world moved on. But the questions never stopped. Did Tournay really murder his commander? Or was the Vatican protecting something far more sinister? Chapter 6. The Legion of Christ and the Depravity of Maciel. For decades, Father Maciel was untouchable. A charismatic leader, a prolific fundraiser, and the founder of the powerful Legion of Christ, he enjoyed the personal favor of Pope John Paul II, who once called him an example for young people. Under his leadership, the Legion grew into one of the wealthiest and most influential Catholic organizations in the world. But beneath the polished exterior lay a web of deception, abuse, and corruption so vast that even the Vatican could not contain it forever. Maciel was a master manipulator. He cultivated deep ties within the Vatican, securing financial backing and unwavering support from the Church's highest ranks. His Legion of Christ, known for its strict discipline and loyalty, amassed billions in donations. Wealthy benefactors, including politicians and business elites, saw him as a saintly figure. Yet behind the closed doors of his order, dark secrets festered. For years, whispers of abuse trailed Maciel, but every accusation was met with Vatican silence, or worse, retaliation against the victims. Former seminarians accused him of sexual misconduct, describing how Maciel would prey on young men under his spiritual care. Those who spoke out were silenced, threatened, or dismissed as liars trying to tarnish a holy man. The Vatican had evidence as early as the 1950s, yet nothing was done. Why? Because Maciel was too valuable. His legion was a financial powerhouse, and he had powerful friends inside the church who ensured his protection. Maciel's double life was staggering in its audacity. While preaching morality and celibacy, he fathered multiple children with different women, some of whom later alleged that he had abused them as well. He lived in luxury, traveling under false identities, indulging in expensive habits, and reportedly even misappropriating Vatican funds for personal use. Despite mounting allegations, the Church continued to shield him. Pope John Paul II's administration refused to investigate the claims seriously. When victims submitted formal complaints to the Vatican, they were ignored, or worse, accused of attacking the Church. It wasn't until Pope Benedict XVI took office in 2005 that the walls finally began to close in. The Vatican launched an internal investigation, and in 2006, Maciel was stripped of his public ministry. But even then, he was never formally excommunicated or put on trial. Instead, he was told to live a life of prayer and penance until his death in 2008. The truth could no longer be buried. After Maciel's death, the Legion of Christ finally admitted to his crimes, and the Vatican issued an apology, But for many victims, it was too little, too late. For decades, Maciel had been protected, his sins hidden in the shadows of the Vatican's power. His story is a chilling reminder of how far the Church was willing to go to protect its own, no matter the cost. Chapter 7, The Secret Archives. Hidden knowledge or darkest crimes? Behind the fortified walls of Vatican City, buried beneath centuries of history, lies a library so secretive that only a handful of people in the world have full access. The Vatican's Secret Archives, a collection of ancient manuscripts, confidential correspondences, and classified church records, hold nearly 53 miles of shelving, packed with documents spanning over 1,200 years. What's inside? Lost Gospels? Forbidden knowledge? Evidence of crimes buried by the Church? The truth is locked away, deep within the corridors of power, and only the Vatican knows how dark its secrets truly are. For centuries, whispers have swirled about what the secret archives contain. Some historians believe they hold suppressed religious texts, gospels that contradict church doctrine, possibly even accounts of Jesus Christ that were deemed too controversial. Others speculate about records of Vatican espionage, detailing the Church's involvement in political assassinations, financial scandals, and even intelligence operations with world governments. And then there are the more unsettling rumors. Declassified documents have already proven the Vatican's involvement in covering up abuse scandals. But what if that's only the tip of the iceberg? Could the archives contain evidence of conspiracies so vast and horrifying that they could shake the foundation of the Church itself? In 2010, journalist Gianluigi Nuzzi published leaked Vatican documents exposing financial corruption and money laundering schemes within the Holy See. The source? An informant inside the Church, proof that even the Vatican's most sacred vaults aren't impenetrable. One of the most chilling files believed to be inside the secret archives is the transcript of the 1312 trial of the Knights Templar. The Templars, once the Church's most elite warriors, were suddenly declared heretics, arrested and burned at the stake. Some say the true reason for their downfall is buried in the Vatican's vaults. Perhaps they discovered something the Church wanted hidden forever. Then there's the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, a list of books the Vatican once banned, including scientific texts that challenge religious teachings. For centuries, the Church suppressed knowledge, from Galileo's discoveries to theories that question biblical accounts. And what about alien contact? Some theorists claim the Vatican has been collecting evidence of extraterrestrial life for centuries. In 2008, Vatican astronomers even acknowledged the possibility of alien life, raising questions about what the Church already knows but refuses to disclose. Despite the Vatican declassifying some documents in recent years, the true depths of the archives remain off-limits. Only scholars with special permission, a privilege granted to very few, are allowed inside. And even then, they can only request specific documents. No wandering, no digging too deep. What are they afraid people will find? The Vatican's secret archives hold the potential to rewrite history, expose buried scandals, and reveal truths long hidden. But for now, the answers remain locked behind centuries-old doors, guarded by a Church that knows some secrets can never be allowed to escape. Chapter 8, VatiLeaks, Corruption, Betrayal, and the Fall of a Pope. On the night of January 25, 2012, a bombshell exploded inside the Vatican walls. A secret dossier filled with confidential letters, financial reports, and internal memos had been leaked to the press. The documents painted a damning picture of financial corruption, power struggles, and deep fractures within the Holy See. The scandal, soon dubbed VatiLeaks, sent shock waves through the Catholic Church. And at the center of the storm, Pope Benedict XVI, the first pope in over 600 years to resign. Was he a frail old man who stepped down willingly, or was he forced out to protect the Vatican's darkest secrets? The scandal began with an anonymous informant inside the Vatican, someone who had access to the Pope's most sensitive and confidential documents. These files detailed money laundering through the Vatican Bank, financial mismanagement, and internal rivalries so vicious they resembled a crime syndicate. The documents found their way to Gianluigi Nuzzi, an investigative journalist who compiled them into his explosive book, His Holiness, the secret papers of Benedict XVI. The revelations were staggering. High-ranking Vatican officials had siphoned millions of dollars into private accounts. Church funds meant for charity were being used for personal luxuries. A brutal power struggle between rival factions within the Curia, the Vatican's governing body, was tearing the church apart. The leak led to the shocking arrest of Paolo Gabriele, Pope Benedict's personal butler. He was accused of stealing the documents and passing them to Nuzzi. But the question lingered. Was he acting alone, or was he merely a scapegoat in a much larger conspiracy? The fallout from VatiLeaks was immediate and severe. The Vatican scrambled to contain the damage, launching an internal investigation led by a secretive committee of cardinals. But the deeper they dug, the clearer it became. The corruption ran all the way to the top. Then in February 2013, the world was stunned when Pope Benedict XVI announced his resignation. No pope had resigned since 1415, and the Vatican's official explanation that he was stepping down due to old age only fueled speculation. Some believe Benedict was pushed out by powerful forces within the church. Had he uncovered something so damaging that he had no choice but to step aside? Or was his resignation the final move in an elaborate internal coup? Adding to the mystery, just hours after his announcement, a bolt of lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica. An omen? A warning? Or just a bizarre coincidence? Pope Benedict lived in seclusion until his death in 2022, never fully explaining why he stepped down. The Vatican sealed its investigation into VatiLeaks, ensuring that the full truth would never come to light. Was it merely a financial scandal? Or was there something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? The answer remains locked behind Vatican walls, buried alongside the secrets that some believe cost a pope his throne. Chapter 9. The Vatican's Role in the Holocaust. In the shadow of World War II, as Europe burned and millions of lives were consumed by the horrors of the Holocaust, the Vatican stood at the crossroads of history. But instead of being a beacon of moral authority, it remained eerily silent. At the heart of this controversy was Pope Pius XII, the Supreme Pontiff from 1939 to 1958. The world expected him to speak out against Hitler's atrocities, to denounce the genocide of millions. Instead, he said almost nothing. Was this silence a calculated decision to protect the church, or was there something far darker at play? As Hitler's death squad swept across Europe, deporting Jews to the gas chambers of Auschwitz and Treblinka, Pope Pius XII never issued a direct condemnation of the Nazi regime. His defenders argue that he worked behind the scenes, secretly aiding Jews by helping them escape through Vatican diplomatic channels. They point to clandestine efforts by priests and nuns who sheltered refugees, forging baptismal certificates to hide Jewish identities. But others see his silence as cowardice, or worse, complicity. In 1942, the Allies publicly confirmed that millions of Jews were being systematically exterminated. Religious leaders around the world spoke out in outrage, but the Vatican's response was muted. Instead of a fiery denunciation, Pope Pius XII issued vague, indirect statements about suffering and war, never once mentioning Jews by name. Why? Some historians believe the answer lies in the Vatican's long-standing political alliances. Newly uncovered documents suggest that the Vatican had deep connections to fascist governments, including Hitler's Third Reich and Mussolini's Italy. In 1929, the Church signed the Lateran Treaty with Mussolini, securing Vatican City as an independent state in exchange for official recognition of his fascist rule. This deal gave the Church immense power and wealth, but at what cost? During the war, the Vatican maintained diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany, refusing to excommunicate Catholic leaders in Hitler's regime. Many top Nazis, including Heinrich Himmler and Joseph Goebbels, were raised Catholic, yet the Church never formally condemned them. Even more unsettling after the war, Vatican officials were instrumental in helping high-ranking Nazis escape justice. Using a clandestine network known as the Ratlines, war criminals like Adolf Eichmann and Josef Mengele fled Europe through Vatican-monitored routes, finding refuge in Argentina and Spain. In recent years, the Vatican has partially opened its wartime archives, but much remains hidden. Did Pope Pius XII do enough? Did the Church secretly assist the Nazis? Or were its leaders simply too afraid to act? The answers may never be fully known, but one thing is certain: the Vatican's silence during the darkest chapter of the 20th century will forever haunt its legacy. Chapter 10: Exorcisms, Demonic Possession, and the Vatican's Secret Rituals. The priest raised the crucifix, his voice trembling as he commanded the entity to leave. The possessed girl's body convulsed violently, her eyes rolling back into her head. Then, in a guttural voice that was not her own, she spoke, "I am many." For centuries, the Vatican has claimed to be locked in an invisible war with the forces of darkness, battling demons through the ancient rite of exorcism. While skeptics dismiss these rituals as medieval superstition, what if the Church knows something the rest of the world doesn't? Inside the Vatican, behind heavy iron doors, lies a collection of classified reports known only to a select few, the Exorcist Files. These records document hundreds of alleged possessions witnessed by priests over the years, from ordinary people to high-ranking clergy. The details are chilling. A 12-year-old boy in the U.S. whose bed levitated as priests attempted to expel a presence within him, a case that inspired the Exorcist movie. A woman in Spain who spoke in ancient Aramaic, a language she had never studied, while convulsing violently. A young seminarian in Italy who displayed superhuman strength, requiring 5 men to restrain him during the ritual. These stories are not just myths whispered in dark corridors. They are official accounts recorded by the Vatican's most experienced exorcists. Most people don't realize that the Vatican runs an official school for exorcists, the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum in Rome. Here, priests from around the world learn the ancient rites of demon expulsion. The training includes studying medieval texts, case studies, and even psychological evaluations to differentiate mental illness from true possession. One of the Vatican's most famous exorcists was Father Gabriele Amorth, a priest who claimed to have performed over 70,000 exorcisms during his lifetime. Amorth insisted that Satan was real, that possession was an ongoing battle, and that modern society had allowed evil to spread unchecked. In one interview, Amorth described a young man whose face distorted so grotesquely during an exorcism that even seasoned priests recoiled in horror. Another time, he claimed to have seen objects fly across the room by themselves as a woman's voice shifted from childlike innocence to demonic rage in an instant. Beyond exorcisms, whispers persist about hidden Vatican texts detailing supernatural entities. Some believe the Church possesses ancient grimoires, forbidden books that explain how to summon and banish demons. Others claim the Vatican has classified evidence of possessions too terrifying to be made public. Does the Vatican truly hold the key to understanding the supernatural? Or is it simply clinging to ancient beliefs, keeping the world in fear of a darkness that may not exist? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the Vatican still believes in demons, and its battle against them continues to this day. Chapter 11: The Vatican and the Occult, Hidden Symbols and Forbidden Knowledge. The grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica is meant to inspire awe, to remind visitors that they stand in the heart of the Christian world. But look closely, past the gold, past the towering marble columns, and something unsettling emerges. Symbols not of Christianity, but of something far older, something more mysterious. For centuries, whispers have surrounded the Vatican's connection to the occult. From its rumored ties to secret societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminati, to the forbidden texts locked away in the Vatican's secret archives, the Church has long been accused of harboring esoteric knowledge, or perhaps hiding something even darker. The Vatican's architecture is more than just artistic splendor. It's riddled with symbols linked to ancient mystery traditions. The obelisk in St. Peter's Square, for example, is not Christian in origin. It was brought from Egypt, where it once stood as a tribute to the sun god Ra. Why would the center of Catholicism place a pagan monument at its core? Some theorists believe it is a hidden nod to the Vatican's true, secret allegiance, one that predates Christianity itself. Then there's the all-seeing eye, an image that appears in various Vatican structures. It's a symbol long associated with Freemasonry, an organization accused of infiltrating the Church. Even Pope Leo XIII in 1884 warn that the Masonic sect aims at the complete destruction of the Church. Could the Vatican and the Freemasons be more intertwined than the Church will ever admit? Locked deep within Vatican City is one of the most secretive collections of documents in history, the Vatican Secret Archives. Stretching over 50 miles of bookshelves, these archives are rumored to contain forbidden knowledge, including ancient grimoires, medieval spellbooks said to contain rituals for summoning spirits and gaining supernatural powers. The Lost Gospel of Judas, which presents an alternative view of Christ's betrayal, suggesting Judas was following divine instructions, not betraying Jesus out of greed. Manuscripts on alchemy, a practice long condemned by the Church yet strangely preserved in its archives. What is the Vatican keeping from the world? Could these texts contain long-lost knowledge, suppressed to maintain religious control? Rumors persist that within the highest ranks of the Vatican, secret societies hold power. The Propaganda du P2 Masonic Lodge, a shadowy organization exposed in the 1980s, had deep ties to the Vatican Bank. Some claim P2 was involved in money laundering, political corruption, and even assassinations. Even more chilling are allegations that the Vatican has long collaborated with the Illuminati, an ancient order said to seek global influence through knowledge and secrecy. Could the Church, which claims to fight against such groups, actually be working alongside them? The deeper one digs, the more the lines between faith, power, and the occult begin to blur. Is the Vatican merely a guardian of Christian tradition, or is it safeguarding knowledge far more dangerous than we could ever imagine? Chapter 12. The Death of Pope John Paul I. Assassination or Natural Causes. On the morning of September 29, 1978, the Vatican awoke to shocking news. Pope John Paul I was dead. The new pope, a humble and soft-spoken man who had held the papacy for just 33 days, was found lifeless in his bed. The official cause? A sudden heart attack. But almost immediately, rumors began swirling. Why was no autopsy performed? Why was the Vatican's story about who found the body inconsistent? And most disturbingly, was Pope John Paul I murdered because he had uncovered dangerous secrets within the Church? Before his sudden death, Pope John Paul I had been making waves within the Vatican. Unlike many of his predecessors, he refused to wear the papal crown, rejected luxury, and spoke openly about cleaning up corruption within the Church. His biggest target? The Vatican Bank. At the time, the Vatican Bank was deeply entangled with money laundering, Mafia connections, and political scandals. Billions of dollars were flowing through its accounts, much of it untraceable. John Paul I had reportedly planned to remove high-ranking clergy involved in financial crimes, including powerful cardinals. According to David Yallop's investigative book In God's Name, the Pope had compiled a list of individuals to be dismissed, including Paul Marcinkus, the controversial head of the Vatican Bank. Did this list seal his fate? The first sign that something was amiss came with contradictory reports about how John Paul I's body was found. At first, Vatican officials claimed he was discovered by a priest. Later, the story changed. He was found by a nun. His eyeglasses, papers, and medications had been mysteriously removed from the scene. The Vatican refused to allow an autopsy, citing tradition, but many questioned whether the real reason was to cover up foul play. One of the most chilling claims came from Father Abbo, a Vatican insider, who said John Paul I had been seen perfectly healthy the night before his death. He was laughing, discussing plans, showing no signs of illness. Yet just hours later, he was gone. Some theories suggest that John Paul I was poisoned, perhaps with digitalis, a drug that can cause a fatal heart attack without leaving clear evidence. One man who might have held answers was Cardinal Jean-Marie Villot, the Vatican Secretary of State, who allegedly removed the Pope's papers and personal belongings before his death was even officially announced. Even more disturbingly, many of the officials John Paul I allegedly planned to remove remained in power for years. Was Pope John Paul I simply a victim of poor health? Or did he step too close to the Vatican's darkest secrets? Secrets so dangerous that he had to be silenced. Whatever the truth, his brief and mysterious reign remains one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in Vatican history. Chapter 13: The Vatican's Links to Child Trafficking. The grand halls of the Vatican, adorned with priceless art and bathed in centuries-old tradition, are meant to symbolize purity and righteousness. But beneath the golden facade, dark secrets fester. Secrets that point to one of the most horrifying scandals in the Church's history. For decades, allegations have surfaced linking members of the clergy to child trafficking rings. Their crimes hidden behind the sacred walls of religious institutions? How deep does this nightmare go? And more disturbingly, why has the Vatican failed to act with urgency? One of the earliest and most shocking cases emerged in Spain, where an estimated 300,000 babies were stolen from their mothers between the 1930s and 1980s. Known as Los Niños Robados, the stolen children. This network involved priests, nuns, and doctors who falsified birth records and sold newborns to wealthy, devout Catholic families. The victims: unwed mothers, poor women, or those deemed morally unfit by the Church. For decades, the Vatican remained silent. Even as Spanish courts uncovered undeniable evidence, Church officials offered little more than vague expressions of regret, never an admission of guilt. And Spain was only the beginning. From Ireland's Magdalene laundries to orphanages in Canada, Australia, and Argentina, the Catholic Church has been implicated in countless cases of systematic abuse and trafficking. One of the most infamous cases was the Tuam mother and baby home in Ireland. In 2014, historian Catherine Corliss uncovered the remains of nearly 800 infants buried in an unmarked mass grave, hidden beneath a former Catholic-run institution for unmarried mothers. How did these children die? And why were they buried without records, without dignity? The Vatican remains silent. In Argentina, during the country's dirty war, 1976 to 1983, Catholic officials were accused of collaborating with the military dictatorship to traffic the children of political prisoners. Mothers were executed after giving birth, and their babies were handed over to military families, all under the silent approval of church leaders. Did the Vatican know? And if so, why did it allow these crimes to continue unchecked? Whenever allegations surfaced, the Church's response was eerily similar: deny, delay, and deflect. Move accused priests instead of punishing them. Silence survivors with financial settlements, but never true justice. Documents released from within the Vatican suggest that high-ranking officials knew about these crimes for decades, but prioritized protecting the Church's reputation over the victims. Even Pope Francis, widely seen as a reformer, has struggled to confront this crisis. Why? Is the Vatican's reluctance to act a sign of incompetence? Or is it something far more chilling, a sign that some of its most powerful figures were complicit all along? The truth remains buried in sealed archives, whispered behind closed doors. But one thing is certain: the cries of the victims will not be silenced forever. Chapter 14: The Vatican's Secret Knowledge of Extraterrestrials. The Vatican, a fortress of faith, a beacon of divine authority. Yet behind its ancient walls, whispers persist of something far more otherworldly than angels and demons. For centuries, rumors have swirled that the Holy See possesses secret knowledge of extraterrestrial life, locked away in its forbidden archives. Is it true? Does the Vatican know we are not alone? And if so, why has it kept this knowledge hidden? One of the strangest clues lies in the Vatican Observatory, one of the most advanced astronomical research institutions in the world. Why does a religious institution, whose primary focus is supposed to be spiritual, not scientific, maintain one of the most powerful observatories on Earth? Located in Arizona, the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, VATT, is run by Jesuit astronomers who have openly spoken about the possibility of alien life. One of its leading researchers, Father José Gabriel Funes, once stated, "If we consider earthly creatures as brothers and sisters, why can't we speak of an extraterrestrial brother?" Was this a casual theological statement, or an attempt to prepare humanity for a revelation hidden within the Vatican's vaults? Perhaps even more unsettling is the Lucifer device, an infrared camera used by the Vatican's observatory. The name alone has sparked conspiracy theories, though the acronym stands for Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Utility, with camera and integral field unit for extragalactic research. Why is the Vatican investing in deep space research? What exactly is it looking for? And more importantly, what has it already found? For centuries, the Vatican's secret archives, a repository of forbidden texts, lost scriptures, and confidential documents, have been rumored to contain evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Some researchers claim the archives house ancient manuscripts describing celestial visitors appearing before early Christian leaders, papal correspondences discussing unknown flying objects witnessed throughout history, a classified document from Pope John XXIII, who allegedly had a direct encounter with an extraterrestrial being in the Vatican gardens in 1961. According to Pope John XXIII's personal secretary, the pontiff saw a glowing, oval-shaped craft land on Vatican grounds. A luminous being emerged and communicated with him. The Pope reportedly said, "The children of God are everywhere, even among the stars." The Vatican has remained tight-lipped about UFOs and alien life, even as governments around the world begin declassifying documents on unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. Why the silence? Is the Church afraid that disclosure could shake the foundations of faith? Or, more disturbingly, has the Vatican been in contact with extraterrestrials for centuries? The truth may be buried beneath the Holy See, but one thing is certain: the Vatican's secrets stretch far beyond Earth itself.